Dan the Wheelman here, and with me today is this. This is the 2021 Mercedes-Benz S580 4MATIC. Comes from a long line of legendary motor cars. It's got great styling, great room inside, great tech, great power, and of course, great luxury. We're going to have a closer look at all of that over the course of this video. So come along with me and let's take a ride.
So I'm going to say Benz for the duration of this video, because if I say the other thing, Mercedes, there's a chance I'll activate the voice activation system, and I don't want to do that here. So like the New York Yankees, who are arguably the most legendary sports franchise of all time, the S-Class Mercedes is one of the most, the S-Class Benz is one of the most legendary motor cars of all time. It's important to the tapestry of the motor car as a whole. After all, the S-Class is one of the first vehicles to make widespread use of electronic ABS, pneumatic ride control, pneumatic windows. It's been powered by a number of different engines over the years, straight sixes, V8s, there was even a diesel at one point. They took it racing with the Red Hog or the Red Sow, whatever it was called, back in the day. It was one of the first vehicles to have proper crumple zones to surround its occupants with a protective cell. All that is S-Class, but through all that, it's always stood on a few pillars to define it as an S-Class. Luxury, power, tech, safety, ride, and exclusivity. Everybody recognizes an S-Class when they see one. I just drove by a couple of construction workers. They're all giving me props, you know, big high fives, all that kind of stuff, because they respect this vehicle. Maybe they've seen it in popular culture before. Tom Hanks' character drove one in the film adaptation of The Bonfire of the Vanities, even though his character in the book, I think, drove a Cadillac, so there you go. Jean Reno drove one in Ronin. Master P drove one in Gone in 60 Seconds, the Nicolas Cage one, and probably numerous rap videos as well. Speaking of the Yankees, George Costanza, Jason Alexander drove one in Curb Your Enthusiasm. The S-Class is one of the only Benzes that still makes use of the proper Benz emblem coming up off of the hood, just like Spirit of Ecstasy over at Rolls-Royce, as opposed to other vehicles and other Benzes which use kind of like a standard badge on the hood. That's how important this vehicle is to Benz and the car culture as a whole. And speaking of Rolls-Royce, when this S-Class first arrived in North America, it cost almost as much as a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley to get. That is the cost and price of exclusivity. For all these reasons, that's why I'm so looking forward to giving this a try today.
So, stepping into the new S-Class, you know you're getting into something special, even more so with this particular vehicle, because it has the new MBUX infotainment system in it. Almost every other Mercedes that you've seen me drive, or maybe that you've driven, that you've seen, has the dual digital displays up here, 10.25 inches a piece, one for your gaze cluster, one for your infotainment, A-Class, GLB class, C-Class, and on and on and on. They all have that. This has the new system, which gets you this big central display here, which I don't know how big it is. Could be 12 inches. It's probably more than that, which gives you access to pretty much everything in this vehicle. We'll touch more on that in a little bit, including your Apple CarPlay, which you can access by hitting this button right up here, and that gives you this nice big display for your CarPlay and all that kind of great stuff. The gaze cluster you can modify. You can choose between, you know, sports display, all these other ones that give you just kind of different information readouts and different looks, which is kind of cool. And this thing here, this screen here, not only is it your kind of passive infotainment area, it's also where you there's driver aids through here as well. You hit this camera button down here, and it gives you this kind of top-down view, like you're playing a video game of some kind. My pals at the Straight Pipes likened it to Grand Theft Auto 5. I don't know if I'd go there, but hey, there you go. And you can choose different camera views from here to make sure you can line your car up properly when you park it, and so on and so forth. Front view, top-down view, all that great stuff. It's also here where you see your augmented reality navigation, which is one of my favorite Mercedes features. Basically, as you're driving along and you've got some navigation instructions here, not through CarPlay, through the standard, through the native system, it gives you little arrows and signs there on the display to show you where to turn, what road's coming up, and it gives you a view here of what's going on ahead of you, so you know that if there's a gas station coming up, you know if that gas station is on the other side of the road or this side of the road, you're supposed to turn right before the gas station or after, and so on, because it does all that. The only way to miss the instructions is to literally drive through the little arrows they put on that screen there, and those can migrate up to your heads-up display as well. That is a sweet system that I absolutely love. And of course, you've got, cruise to zero and stuff like that in here. So in stop and go traffic, you don't have to tire yourself out, or your chauffeur doesn't have to tire himself out by constantly hitting the gas and so on. So lots of great stuff in here. And then of course, you've got the comfort features as well. The seat massage system is wild. It gives you all sorts of stuff. If I go to, first you gotta go home, get there. So you'll see massage, deep waves, deep workout cushion, all this kind of stuff. This is a fully decked out vehicle. You can get like a hot rock style massage in here. The seat's heated and it's cool. And that's the front seat. The back seat, thanks to the premium rear seating package I have in my car, which is $7,200, I've got powered rear seats, massaging rear seats, all that kind of really great stuff as well back there, plus sunshades, all that kind of stuff you need. And the crazy part is that's not even the highest level. You can go even higher without even going to the Maybach 600. You can get an even higher end rear seat that allows the right rear passenger to move the right front passenger seat forward for more leg room. They can get fold out tables back there for when they're having their caviar on the road. You can have a system that heats the back of your neck to really turn this S-Class into a limousine. And if you are of a certain persuasion, or maybe live in a certain part of the world, I don't know, this is the only Mercedes that you can get bulletproofed from the factory through Mercedes Guard program. I've been there, I've seen the stuff they do. The glass they put in there is enough to stop a round from an AK-47, probably more, and it's really quite bonkers. And the S-Class is the only car that you can do it from the factory. Not the GLS class, not the G-Class, none of that stuff, just the S-Class. That's how much of Mercedes fabric the S-Class takes up. And we'll talk more about that in a little while as we get on the road, but this is awesome in almost every way. Almost. The one thing that gets me, it's kind of an umbrella issue that happens throughout the cockpit, is, and it starts with that awesome display, is the use, or I would probably say the overuse of touch sensitive or haptic feedback buttons. There are very few hard buttons in here. The only ones I can see from sitting here are the hazards right there, which is actually one big button for all of this stuff, so anyway, whatever. The engine start stop button, which the throw on it is so low that it almost seems like a haptic feedback button, and the window controls and the door lock and unlock. That's it. Everything else is either touch button or a touch panel. That means the seat controls are haptic feedback, the seat memory is haptic feedback, mirror control is haptic feedback, cruise control haptic feedback, volume control haptic feedback, haptic feedback, haptic feedback, haptic feedback everywhere. So much haptic feedback. I miss traditional buttons, I really do. I think I need to go to the back seat now and chill out just a little bit. And what a back seat this is. Tons of legroom, easy entrance and egress thanks to these big doors. The S580 in Canada is available only as a long wheelbase model. If you want a shorter wheelbase S-Class, you have to get an S500. I'm not sure how it is in other markets, but that's how it is here. And of course, that translates to tons of legroom, those big doors, and also some other space in general back here. These seats are
phenomenal. The seating position is awesome. I don't think I've ever remember commenting on the seating position in the back seat before. Usually that's more of a front seat thing, but here you just feel so supported and comfortable. You got the great kind of cushion here for your, I don't know if you can see that, there you go, for your kind of neck. These seats, they can come forward, you can move them back, they massage you, they can be heated, cooled, and all that can be controlled either from this haptic feedback panel here or by this funky tablet right here. You can control your seat. Looks like a Samsung of some kind. You can control your seat, heating, massage, all that. Can't play video games or do instant messaging. Maybe you can, I don't know, but even if you can, I'm sure most people that own this have plenty of devices to do that. Anyway, this is an amazing back seat. But the only thing here I recognize when it comes to back seats of your typical sedan are the cup holders. That's the only kind of thing. For some reason they take 2 presses to move out. I'm not sure why, but that's it. Everything else here is totally kind of just unique and new. And the fact that you can even make it better back here by adding the footrest, by adding the neck warming system, by adding the ability to slant this seat all the way back pretty much to full recline, all that. The fact you can do that even more without going to another level of a car is almost unbelievable to me, because this back seat is so comfortable. And I even got my own sunroof. And let's be honest, a lot of people that own a long wheelbase S-Class, there's a good chance they aren't doing the driving themselves. A good chance they're paying somebody to do the driving for them. So why should the passenger who's paying for the car not get the benefits of a sunroof? In this one, they do. You've got your own sunroof back here as well, which is something that's usually reserved for like 3-row SUVs. And there's plenty of 3-row SUVs out there that don't even have that. So what a crazy back seat, man. I could spend a lot of time back here, that's for sure. In fact, I think I will. Good night. The S-Class is the car you think of when you think of luxury motoring or luxury sedan. So much so that when the Mercedes GL was first launched, that's the 3-row SUV now called the GLS, Mercedes called it the S-Class of SUVs. The S-Class was used as a measuring stick, not just a car, a measuring stick of what luxury can be. And now we're here with the S580. It's the latest version of the S-Class, which means it's undergone tons of styling changes. I love the wheels on this here. Those are awesome. They've changed the headlights. It's a little more tamer than it used to be, but more in fitting with the rest of the Mercedes lineup. The vehicle, especially from the rear 3/4 view, really looks nice and kind of put together as one very kind of slab-like, but in a good way, Even the sensor for the various adaptive driver aids that's hanging kind of like a bib off the grill there has been designed to fit better in with the grill than it has before, than it does on like a Genesis, for example, which is one of the worst examples of what can go wrong with those bib-like sensor systems. This is a stylistic, man. Those tail lights, those little posts in them that act as bulbs, that looks awesome, and it looks so natural. Like Acura did their 9-bulb angel eyes light, whatever it was called, on the TLX, I think has it, the MDX, I think they all have it now. They did that look cool. It's kind of, compared to this, it looks a little bit forced. This, they just kind of seamlessly integrate all those kind of like bulbs. There's 3 bulbs in the front here instead of 2 like you see in most Mercedes. That's, again, that's an S-Class thing. So they've really done a great job. But the bottom line is, when you sit in the S-Class and you start driving and you look out over and you see that proud 3-pointed star leading the way ahead of you there, you just feel like you've really made it. You feel like this is the car for people that know what they're talking about when it comes to business, know what they're talking about when it comes to cars too. It's just, you just feel like really so kind of like high level. It's just such a star car. And that's all just the aesthetics part. It goes much deeper than that. I've got a twin turbo, or Mercedes speak, bi-turbo V8 here, good for 495 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque, which is not a small amount. There's a smaller engine. There's a turbo inline 6 that you get in the S500, a little bit less power. But this one here really is, and on top of all that, you've got a 48V mild hybrid system, which gives you kind of a boost in power and you accelerate, but also allows you to coast without using the engine at all in eco mode too. Kind of nice to be able to do all that kind of stuff. And you just, as soon as you dip into the throttle on this car, which weighs north of, I don't even know how much, I'll put the actual curb weight on here in just a second, but that weighs quite a lot. You put the pedal down and you get some proper acceleration response from this vehicle. This thing is so well just developed and tuned and put together, and the engine is just so powerful. And that mild hybrid system really helps bring it all home, as does the Mercedes E-Active Body Assist, something like that. I don't forget exactly what it's called, but what that does is it can kind of read the road ahead of you for bumps and berms and stuff like that. It'll adjust the pneumatic damper or pneumatic suspension to compensate for that. So when you go over a speed bump, you might not even realize you went over. That's not entirely true, but it lowers the impact of that so much. When you go through sunken manhole covers, when you go, and of course, when you're rounding corners as well, it helps level the whole thing out, so it keeps occupants comfortable, keeps the body in place, and keeps all that weight again in check. This thing can handle too. However, I'm glad there's an individual setting for the drive modes here. I find S and S Plus. S is okay, but S Plus is definitely a little bit too hardcore for everyday use. So what I've done is I've got an individual setting in here that I can access via the dynamic menu right here, that I've given myself some kind of S mode power and S mode steering, because I like the steering to be a little heavier weighted. In regular mode, the steering is quite light in here, and I understand why they do that. But I like to have a little more weight, so I've got the steering in Sport or Sport Plus here. Let me just double check that. I've got it in Sport. I've got the steering in Sport, but I've got the chassis in Comfort, so I'm comfortable, but I can still get the better steering feel and better acceleration as well, because I've got that in Sport mode too. And this thing just it just flies down the road. Like, this car shouldn't be as quick feeling as it is. Long wheelbase, big weight, all that kind of stuff. It really shouldn't be, but it is more than an able handler. It's an extremely good handler, and it really just it just smooths out. It is such an incredible ride. That is really, handling is one thing. That's more of a car nerd thing, I think. When it comes to everyday buyer of cars, comfort is huge, and this is so comfortable. In addition to the massaging seats and the heated seats and the hot rock massage seats and all that kind of stuff, you've got that chassis with the air ride suspension, the well-tuned dampers, and tons of sound deadening everywhere. It's probably like a quadruple layer windshield or something. Wait, no, this isn't one of the S-Guard cars. But anyway, it probably has like double layers, sound deadening here, sound deadening on the bulkhead and the wheel wells, all that kind of stuff. You hardly hear it when you're driving, but when you really get on it, you hear a bit of a growl, and you want a little bit of a growl from your big V8 powered sedan. But it's just so soft and nice. It's just so wonderful to drive this thing. We've had some crappy weather in Vancouver lately, and I just want to put a quick shout out to all the farmers and folks in the Fraser Valley and on the Washington border that have had so much trouble with flooding over the last couple of days. Today is December 2nd, and the last few days have really been tough on them, and I want to extend my best and my gratitude to them as well for sticking it out to keep us fed, keep milk in our fridge, and so on and so forth. We've got some sun now, so hopefully that will dry out in a little bit. But anyway, we've had some crappy weather here, but this is the kind of car you step into it and man, it feels nice. You feel comfortable, and the weather outside really doesn't matter quite as much. What a fantastically designed and engineered vehicle. I want to go back to that haptic feedback button thing that I harped on about earlier. It's not just about like looks or the fact I don't like having smudges on my buttons and stuff like that from my fingers, so it's all piano black. It's just easier to use hard buttons when you're driving. It's just easier to do. You don't have to look at the displays as much, especially when it comes to adjusting your climate control. You don't look at the displays quite as much. You just have to know what your knobs and buttons feel like, and you feel for them. With all this haptic feedback stuff, I feel like there's a little bit of a risk of a little more driver distraction. I understand why they do it. I think there's maybe some cost savings involved. But then again, this is like a $170,000 car, so cost savings, be darned to a degree. But also it does provide a cleaner look to everything as a whole, and there's less stuff that can break with haptic feedback controls as well. You don't have buttons and knobs that can get jammed or stuck or break off or whatever. It's just Mercedes, the way they used to do it was so nice. The way they got knurled aluminum on all their seat controls, stuff like that, just felt so good. Now it's all kind of more monochromatic again. I understand why they do it, but that's just the way it is. But the more you drive one of these, the less you really are thinking about that kind of stuff. This is a supreme vehicle. It's like top of the pops in this business, except there is a problem. There is a problem. And the problem comes from within Mercedes itself. It's called the EQS. Now, you're going to see me driving this new Mercedes EV sedan pretty soon, but it is, for one, it's the first full EV Mercedes we're going to see in Canada, but it is a spectacular vehicle. It's about the same size as the S-Class. I think it's more like the short wheelbase S-Class, but they'll probably do a longer one eventually. I'm not exactly sure there, but it's about the same size as the S-Class, but it's full EV, and it's got the new MBUX, the even higher level MBUX. I mentioned how this is new. That's got the hyperscreen version, which covers the whole dash, which is pretty wild. And it's got all sorts of other driver aids, but it's a full EV vehicle. And when it comes to vehicles that are made for covering long distances like this is, or chauffeuring their well-heeled occupants through the city, business meetings, and so on and so forth, an EV car is perfect for that kind of stuff. And, you know, Mercedes EQ, they even call the mild hybrid system in this thing EQ. So, you know, that's a big brand over at Mercedes. Mercedes EQ is their new electric push. They like every other OEM out there, is going to have to start making almost solely EV or somewhat electrified vehicles, because that's what all the government mandates are saying they're going to have to do. So you have to worry that a vehicle as grand and powerful and fun as the S580 is, you have to think a little bit that it might start, the sheen might come off a little bit. Its light might fade a little bit when you see that EQS coming. As my driver aid there tells me, I'm a little bit close on the right there, even though it didn't seem too close to me. But anyway, that is probably going to be the standard bearer when it comes to Mercedes vehicles. That's going to be the flagship. Rolls-Royce has always said they're only making EV cars pretty soon. So they really, the S-Class is going to find itself in an interesting position as the EQS really starts to proliferate here. So we're just going to see what happens. But like I said before, the S-Class is so universal. It's got such a history to it. It's such an important part of the car world as a whole that I don't think it's going to go down without a fight. And if this S580 is any indication, it's got the weapons to do battle in that world. And for all I know, the mild hybrid system here might be enough for certain government mandates for it to count as electrified enough for it to be sold. I don't exactly have a full grasp on that yet. I don't think anybody does, but they do have a mild hybrid system in here anyway. So there you go. But anyway, I'm a little concerned, but not overly concerned, because this is such a spectacular car. And if there's any, if the car gods out there have any, kind of, a soft bone in their body of any kind, they'll find a way to help Mercedes keep this S-Class going for a long time yet, because it is such a spectacular vehicle. It really is. Man, oh man. Thanks for tuning to this review of the Mercedes-Benz S580. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. If not, no hard feelings. You can follow me on Twitter at DanTheWheelman and on Instagram at DanTheWheelman as well. Look for photo view and more pics of this vehicle on vicariousmag.com sometime soon. But until then, thanks for tuning into this video, and sayonara, folks.